Smilodon, 8-inch canines, a bite that could barely crack a soda can, and somehow it still killed things twice its size. The saber teeth weren't for crushing bone. They were precision blades, built to slide into the throat of prey already pinned by 2 front legs stronger than any cat alive today. Smilodon's forelimbs were denser and more muscular than a modern lion's, built to wrestle bison and ground sloths to the dirt before the killing bite ever landed. Open that jaw to nearly 120 degrees, twice a lion's gape, and those teeth become a single stabbing motion instead of a bite. Break one on bone and you starve. Fossils at the La Brea tar pits show exactly that. Old cats with snapped canines that healed, meaning the pride fed them anyway. A predator that needed a support system to survive its own weapon. Then the megafauna it depended on vanished, and 10,000 years ago, so did Smilodon. Evolution built the perfect ambush blade. It only worked as long as giant prey existed to bleed out from it. Tyrannosaurus rex, 12,000 pounds, a bite force of 12,800 pounds per square inch, strong enough to pulverize bone into a digestible paste. Most predators avoid bone. Rex ate it on purpose, and its droppings, actual fossilized rex feces, are packed with crushed skeletal fragments to prove it. The skull absorbed impact through reinforced sutures that let it slam into prey without shattering its own face. Arms 2 feet long looked useless until researchers found they could curl a bicep stronger than an adult human's, though nobody's fully settled on what they were even for. That question stays open for now. What isn't open is the timeline. Rex ruled for roughly 2 million years until a massive asteroid struck Earth, triggering a rapid global climate collapse that wiped out every non-avian dinosaur. The deadliest bite in Earth's history didn't lose a fight. The sky did it for free. Megalania. Imagine a monitor lizard, then stretch it to nearly 18 feet and drop it into Ice Age Australia. Megalania was the largest land lizard that ever lived, closely related to today's Australian lace monitor. Serrated teeth curved backward like a shark's, built to shred rather than puncture, and some researchers argue it carried venom glands, delivering an anticoagulant bite that let wounded prey bleed out over hours instead of minutes. It didn't need speed. It needed patience and geography. An entire continent isolated long enough for reptiles instead of mammals to sit at the top. Aboriginal oral traditions describe giant monster lizards passed down for tens of thousands of years, old enough that some researchers think they may describe an animal humans actually watched go extinct. Australia isolated its predators for millions of years. Humans arrived, and the isolation ended fast. Hyaenodon, before wolves, before big cats as we know them, this was the apex predator across 3 continents for over 20 million years, longer than any carnivorous mammal lineage since. Hyaenodon wasn't related to modern dogs or hyenas at all, despite the name. It belonged to an entirely separate lineage of meat-eating mammals that split off before true carnivorans even existed, meaning it built teeth, jaws, and hunting strategy completely from scratch. Some species were the size of a house cat. Others stretched past the length of a grizzly bear, with skulls built almost entirely around slicing blades instead of crushing molars. For 20 million years, it had no real competition. Then true carnivorans, the ancestors of today's cats and dogs, showed up with more efficient jaws and better brains relative to body size. Hyaenodon didn't get outfought. It got outcompeted into irrelevance over a few million years, which in evolutionary terms is barely a blink. Andrewsarchus. 1 skull. That's all we have. Found in Mongolia in 1923, nearly 3 feet long, the largest skull of any land-dwelling meat-eating mammal ever discovered. And from that single piece of bone, scientists built an entire monster. No other remains have ever surfaced. Estimates put it somewhere near a bear's size, with a jaw structure that looks more suited to crushing shellfish and scavenging carcasses than hunting like a wolf. It might not have even been a pure predator at all, and honestly, nobody agrees. Some paleontologists now think it's closer to primitive hoofed mammals than to any true carnivore, distant kin to whales and hippos rather than to lions. An entire genus defined and debated for a century, resting on one skull that a Mongolian expedition happened to trip over in the desert. By the way, if you're enjoying learning about these creatures, I post content like this regularly. I'd appreciate if you subscribed. Thanks. Dunkleosteus. 13 feet of heavy armor and a bite that didn't use teeth at all. Instead, bladed bone plates sharpened themselves against each other every time the jaw closed, creating a self-honing edge strong enough to bite clean through the armor of other armored fish, its own relatives included. Bite force estimates put it near 8,000 pounds per square inch, rivaling a modern crocodile, generated by a jaw that could open and close in under a 50th of a second, fast enough to create suction that pulled prey directly into its mouth. This was the dominant ocean predator during the Devonian, an era so dominated by fish that geologists just call it the Age of Fish. Then an extinction event wiped out nearly 70% of all species on Earth, armor and all. The strongest bite in the ocean didn't matter once the ocean itself turned hostile. Thylacoleo, Australia's marsupial lion, had the bite force of a lion twice its size, packed into an animal that weighed barely 220 pounds. The secret was in the skull, jaw muscles anchored so efficiently that per pound, Thylacoleo outbit almost every predator that's ever lived, mammal or otherwise. It didn't stalk like a cat. It used retractable thumb-like claws, unheard of outside primates, to climb trees and ambush prey directly from above, dropping onto the backs of giant kangaroos and flightless megafauna before they knew anything was there. Fossilized claw marks on cave walls in Australia suggest it also used caves as dens, dragging kills back underground. Then, roughly 40,000 years ago, it vanished alongside nearly all of Australia's megafauna, right around the same window humans first arrived on the continent. Nobody can prove the connection. Nobody can rule it out either. Inostrancevia, 250 million years ago, before dinosaurs existed at all, this saber-toothed predator ruled what is now Russia, a 9-foot apex hunter with teeth strikingly similar to Smilodons despite the two animals being separated by 250 million years of completely independent evolution. It wasn't a mammal, and it wasn't a reptile in the way we usually think of one. It belonged to the stem mammal line known as synapsids, a branch cousin to our own ancient lineage. Then the Permian extinction hit, the single worst mass extinction in Earth's history, wiping out over 90% of all species on the planet. Fossils of related species are found across both Russia and South Africa, proving these top predators had spread across the supercontinent of Pangaea over many generations. Evolution built the same deadly blueprint twice on opposite sides of extinction. Neither version got to keep it. If these predators pulled you in, subscribe so you don't miss the next one gone from Earth.